If you've been trying to create the reality that you desire, but nothing seems to be working, then it's probably because you've been missing these teachings that I'll share in this video that are literally like 1,000 times more powerful than manifestation itself. Because what I'm going to share in the video is what allows the technique of manifestation to actually work in the first place. Most people just jump right to the end and start telling you to think positive, but they're missing the entire foundational layer that you must understand before you can actually effectively create the reality that you desire. So the first deeply powerful truth, and what I truly do believe is 1,000 times more powerful than the act of manifesting itself, is to actually understand who and what you truly are. Because just think about it for a sec. If you don't have a full understanding of who or what you really are, then how do you expect to achieve self-mastery, where you can actually manipulate reality and get life to go the way you want it? At the end of the day, if you don't know who you are, then you're going to be constantly blind. There's going to be some kind of blinder up. And honestly, it's like trying to push a rock boulder up a huge hill instead of just letting it roll down on its own. You're just always going to be running into some sort of brick wall. And this is also, this understanding that I'm about to share, is the foundational truth that allows manifestation to work in the first place. Because without knowing this, there's no ground to really build from. So if you've ever noticed, there's this little voice in your head that's constantly yapping about, telling you all kinds of random things. And this voice in your head is what manifestation teachers tell you to make positive. You know what I mean? They're saying, okay, your thoughts right now are thinking negative stuff, so you need to direct it towards a positive direction. But what's even more powerful than that is to actually wake up outside of this voice in your head itself and to realize that you, as the awareness, are not this voice. That this voice is just something that is happening within you. When this happens, when you start to understand that you are the observer of this voice instead of being the actual voice itself, this is when you actually step beyond positivity and negativity. You become the observer of the voice in your head being negative or positive. And the thing is that this voice in your head, it only has as much power as you give it. So if you're entertaining negative thoughts the entire day, and then you slap a little positivity on at night before you're falling asleep, then you're constantly in a tug of war with the actual types of thoughts you're thinking. And I'm sure you've felt this before, where you pretty much go into like an unconscious state where you're just going about living your life, and then all of a sudden you wake up like a couple hours later and realize you've been lost in ruminating about all this different negative stuff. But by discovering that who you really are is the space or the awareness that this voice arises in, you can start to shift your identity out of being constantly lost in this little me or this mind. And you can begin to let go of focusing on this mind and come back to your natural state as a open, observing awareness. Because as you probably noticed, throughout your life, there's constant things changing, right? Your emotions change, your thoughts change. Everything around you is coming and going. But there's only one part of you that has always remained the same throughout your entire life, from when you're 5 years old to whatever age you are now. And that is the fact that you are aware. But what happens is this awareness that you are, it gets completely lost in and distracted by your mind, your little me. And so you lose yourself to this voice in your head. And then what people will tell you to do is Okay, now it's your job to control this voice in your head. But have you ever noticed how exhausting that can be? To constantly be trying to control what it's saying all day long, to be constantly monitoring every little thought. Oh, no, that's not true. This negativity isn't true. I'm thinking this positive thought. It's exhausting. You're constantly on guard, constantly monitoring, right? And through this, you're living in a state of fear. But when you wake up outside of this altogether, and you realize that all this stuff that the mind is saying is an illusion, then really what ends up happening is you start to see the mind for what it is, which is a series of programs that have been installed. Instead of being lost in the operating software that you've built blindly, you start to step out of it, and from this perspective, you begin to be able to mold it however you want. So what I mean by this is, throughout your life, you have built a certain operating software based on how you think about yourself, based on the beliefs that you hold, the stories that you tell yourself on a daily basis. All of this culminates into a general filter in which you see reality through. Now, before you understand who you really are and understand that you're the awareness that observes all this, you are completely lost in the program. Your experience is being filtered by this mental program, and you become so lost in it that you actually become it. So there is no space between the software and you. And when this happens, it starts running blindly and unconsciously below the surface, and it controls your entire life. So what this computer program is it is your brain. And your brain is comprised of all these neural pathways, of all the things that you've constantly repeated throughout your life. So there's certain negative thoughts or ways of viewing yourself or self-identity that you've reinforced over and over and over again. And they've been reinforced so much that it ends up becoming this natural operating system that you're filtering life through. But when you don't understand that you're not this mind, which the mind is this operating system, then it will talk as your voice in your head, and it will say all these very convincing stories about yourself, who you are, and what you are capable of. So someone might tell you, think positive. Start to change your thoughts to a more positive direction. But this voice or computer program that has been reinforced over years is screaming on the other side of what you're trying to positively enforce that is not true. And like I said, as long as you're blindly following it and believing in it, then you are lost in the illusion and you are lost in the program. And from being lost in it, you cannot mold it the way you want to.